Una, good morning to you.
Morning, PJ. Thanks for having me on the show again.
Delighted you could talk to me. You're with Greyhound Rescue Association of Ireland. Now, you would, even though you obviously want greyhounds treated better, you don't support a ban on the sport.
Not necessarily, no. Greyhound Rescue Association of Ireland has always had a neutral stance on greyhound racing, so our priority is to improve welfare standards of greyhounds in Ireland and abroad, and to promote the adoption of greyhounds. I think the most important thing that needs to happen now is there needs to be very serious reform within the greyhound industry, and I know that the IGB has been working with a number of welfare organisations over the last
The Irish Greyhound Board. Yeah.
The Irish Greyhound Board, has been working with a number of different animal welfare organisations and government organisations over the last while to try and prevent animals from being sent to countries where there isn't adequate welfare legislation to safeguard their welfare.
Let's break it up into two separate things here. First of all, I don't think anybody in their right mind would support the export of a beautiful animal of any kind to a place where it might be run into the ground or eaten or boiled alive or treated in any kind of a cruel way. Nobody would support that. But at the same time, a lot of people go out every night of the week or every couple of nights to Corriheen Park to watch and enjoy what is the most engaging and enjoyable night out. Do you think that level of the industry in this country is clean and that we are okay in supporting it?
It's very difficult to answer that question, PJ, because within the greyhound industry you have many people who have been involved in the industry for years. You have trainers and breeders who treat their dogs exceptionally well, who hang on to them after they've retired and keep them as pets. And there are lots and lots of people like that within the racing industry. But equally, there are some people who treat their dogs really, really badly and who are in the sport only for profit. So it's very difficult to give you a clean answer on your question, because there's good and bad within the industry, like there is in every aspect of the world, you know. But I think what we need to look at is, and I think it was Kerry who said that there's roughly 30 dogs a month dying at the Kenydrome in Macau.
That's right.
We have a similar problem here in Ireland. So at the moment we have about 38 dogs who are being put down in pounds around Ireland, and that's just the dogs that are being... This is just specifically greyhounds being euthanised in pounds.
Would they be ex-racers? They would.
These would be ex-racers or dogs who were not deemed fit to race within the commercial industry in Ireland. But on top of that, we have dogs who are being euthanised by veterinarians, and occasionally there are DIY jobs being done by breeders and trainers in Ireland as well. This is something that we need to address very, very seriously. And the other thing is that the greyhound industry, whether people like it or not, it is in decline here and around the world. And the Irish Greyhound Board needs to accept the fact that this is happening, and that breeding, the amount of dogs... I don't think so, because recently the Irish Greyhound Board has received an additional €700,000 in funding, which they've earmarked purely to increase breeding in Ireland. And that's on top of the €14.8 million that they received in the last budget. And realistically, with the industry in decline all over the world, it only makes sense that breeding figures should go down and not up. So if you have an industry in decline here, and also in the UK, Wimbledon track is shutting down next year, Walthamstow in London has closed down. The industry is really, really, really shrinking. So with that in mind, the numbers need to go down. And if you increase the amount of dogs who are being bred in the way that the IGB is doing by incentivising breeding with financial rewards for breeders, all that can happen to those dogs is that they're exported.
Okay.
And at the moment, roughly half...
Which means some of them end up in the Canidrome and even worse.
Yeah. I mean, it's not. And the Kenydrome has received a huge amount of publicity over the last few months, and rightly so. And I think that has been really effective, because it's looking now as if it will be closed down in the next 2 years. But people forget that dogs are going elsewhere. So roughly, I think there's a common misconception in Ireland that every greyhound that is bred or that is born goes on to be a successful racer. An awful lot of the dogs just aren't fast enough, or they're not suitable to race commercially. And then some of these dogs will be put to sleep, but an awful lot of them will be exported. So roughly half of the greyhounds who are bred in Ireland who are deemed to fit for commercial racing. So this is after the dogs who are unfit have been euthanised. Half of the dogs bred for commercial racing will be exported abroad. The UK has always been the most common destination, but with the industry shrinking there, you have more dogs going out to places where there are big concerns about their welfare.
So what do we do? If we don't ban the sport, what do we do?
I think there just needs to be much more reform, serious reform within the industry. I think that the industry can't be relied upon to self-manage. The government needs to step in. And what a lot of people forget is, I mean, recently Australia banned greyhound racing, but the difference between Ireland and Australia is that the Irish Greyhound Board is a semi-state organisation, and thus it's funded by Irish taxes. That's our own taxpayers' money. So the industry, the greyhound racing industry, I'm just going back to what Kerry said. Kerry said that the government was receiving money from the greyhound industry. They're not. They're propping it up. The Irish greyhound industry has not made a profit for almost a decade, and it couldn't exist without the support of the Exchequer funding that they receive. So, for example, 14.8 million euros of taxpayers' money they were awarded in the last budget, and as I said, they went back to the government looking for more. So we're looking at over 15 million euros, and then this breeding programme provides financial incentives to existing and new greyhound breeders. The reality is when you have a semi-state body, there is a level of responsibility to the public. And I think that the IGB needs to be held responsible for things that go on. Anybody who is involved in the dairy or the beef industry will be aware of the fact that there exists a monitoring system for every single head of dairy or beef cattle in the country. If they can do it for cattle, they can do it for dogs. Right. Every single greyhound is tattooed as soon as it's registered to breed, and there needs to be a clear system of traceability where owners and breeders are held responsible for the dogs that are in their care. Okay. Those dogs need to be monitored, and there needs to be serious, and I mean serious, financial penalties for people who are found sending their dogs to countries where there isn't adequate welfare legislation in place.
All right, listen, Una, I'll leave you with that one, and thank you very much for joining me this morning. 1850 715 996. That's Una Jansen from the Greyhound Rescue Association of Ireland.